In 2022, at the beginning of junior year, I weighed in at less than 110 pounds at 6 foot tall. And if you know anything about the human body, I'm sure you know that that's just not enough pounds. I was underweight, out of shape, and ignorant of my physical and mental health. I was only focused on one pretty trivial thing: video games. But in November of last year, I had a God moment. I was up late and something hit me. I knew I needed a change. I couldn't stand who I'd become, so I got out of bed and I started doing the only thing I knew how: push-ups. I started doing them every few days, and then every day, and sometimes even multiple times a day. Soon enough, I began researching full-body workouts to do in my room, and I got hooked. I did them so often that it became what I looked forward to after school, on weekends, and sometimes I'd even skip playing video games just to get a workout. Sometimes. Even though I loved it and got hooked super fast, I was still often struck with waves of demotivation and exhaustion because I was still so new. In the onset, so I came up with the best solution, which was skipping leg days, of course. In the onset, I saw little to no progress and didn't think I was doing it right. But by keeping a level head and staying disciplined, things started to turn around for me. I saw the pounds start to pile on, my endurance skyrocketed, and my physique started to fill up too. And that's why I'm here today. I'm weighing in at 160 pounds and I'm so much more healthy. For the past year now, I've dedicated my life to a health and fitness journey. A journey which has been so hard, yet so rewarding. At the same time, I became healthier in a different way. By finding something so much more valuable than big biceps or a six-pack. I found God. Of course, I had told people I was a Christian before, but I just didn't really take it to heart. Because of fitness, the entire foundation of my faith in Christ was formed. And in the same way, the only reason I found my passion for fitness was because of God. The more I prayed and talked to God, the more I saw improvement in the gym. And correspondingly, the more improvement I saw in myself, the more I wanted to talk to God and thank Him for everything He'd given to get me to where I was today. A grace passage I found that I thought reflected this very well was Chronicles 31:21, which reads, "Every work which began in the service of the house of God, in law and in commandment, seeking his God, he did with all his heart and prospered." In other words, the work that I've done with the Lord in mind has shown unbelievable progress. And that's what I pursued for my capstone this semester. How can I incorporate faith into fitness? I believe God instilled in me a love for the physical aspect of who we are, and I can't wait to share how I've grown and what I've learned so far. I started off my capstone really slow because I was focused on finding ways that I can incorporate faith into my weight training. And even though I had had such a good experience with weight training and God in the past, I just couldn't think of ways to incorporate it into the actual training. So the first thing that I could think of that even remotely incorporated our bodies and some physical or some aspect of the faith was fasting. Even though it had nothing to do with working out, I thought it would be a great way to challenge myself physically while learning the theology of a religious fast. Upon researching it more, I found that fasting is effective when it's done within 24-hour periods 2 times a week. So I did something that I probably shouldn't, and I tried it for 48 hours back to back, and of course miserably failed. It wasn't until around the 4th attempt that I actually went the full 2 days without food. And it was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, and it required me to muster a lot of discipline that I didn't have at the time. But it also taught me the value of traditional Christian fasting and how it teaches us to resist temptation and build resilience, as Jesus did. In Matthew 4:1-11, Jesus was led into the woods to be tempted by the devil. And after his 40 days of fasting and reflection, upon being offered food, he still resisted. It showed me that through fasting, I was building resilience and discipline at the same time. Similarly, I took making discipline a habit to a whole nother level when I decided to do something that I had tried and failed multiple times in the past. My number one enemy in life: waking up. My goal was to wake up at 4:30 a.m. every morning for as long as I could to get ready, eat breakfast, go to the gym, etc. And it took me about a full week of having the alarm set before I was even able to get up once on time. And even though it was painful, the more consistently I did it, the easier it got, as every habit did. Eventually, I had gone a full 3 weeks, waking up every morning to get ready, and it felt great. School didn't feel so tiring anymore. I was still late, a small price to pay, but I could pay attention so much better. My mind and body had already been working, so I was ready for the day. I learned to love doing these hard things because the feeling of accomplishment was so rewarding, especially when I was doing something so mentally challenging. It was only through consistency that I was able to grow through these habits. Like one of my favorite authors and speakers, James Collins said, "Discipline is the consistency of action." In the same way I drove myself to fast and wake up early, I also challenged myself to the hardest workout routine I'd ever have to do. By taking some of my favorite bodybuilders' most gruesome workouts and compiling them into one schedule, I had willingly set myself up for a torturous few weeks. After just 1 week of the workout, I was exhausted, sore, and I didn't have any spirit to go again. I was feeling demotivated, and I didn't want to continue. So instead of giving up, I tried praying. I talked to God, and He reminded me that I needed to continue doing what I had been doing, which was consistency. I needed to stick to it, and it would get easier. Eventually, I was feeling less tired and sore after each workout, and I'd even seen obvious improvement too. I felt a lot stronger, looked better, had much more endurance, and most of all, I had a great sense of accomplishment. It made me realize that I had gotten so caught up in the actual training that I was forgetting the question I was trying to answer the entire time, which was, how is God working through it all? The biggest thing that I had learned throughout this first semester was that if I wanted to grow, I'd need God. The other key thing I'd need was consistency. I had often forgotten to where I was because I was so lost in my training, and I needed a reminder to refocus on God. He would recenter me in times when I felt really low, like after I began my new training regimen, and I was feeling like I wanted to give up. He reminded me that I needed to pray and talk to Him. I was only able to get through these challenges I had set for myself through consistency and, most of all, prayer and God. These prayers and moments when I needed to seek God reminded me of my favorite quote this semester from a gym teacher, Rachel Porter, where she said, "Whether your purpose is bodybuilding, bird watching, or grilling hamburgers, you can still glorify God." For context, during the interview, we were talking about how we can get caught up in what we love and forget who it's for, which was so relatable to me at the time. It taught me that no matter who we are and what we do, we shouldn't take our eyes off God and still look to Him through the good and the bad. Unfortunately, though, this didn't go the way I planned. We can't always control everything, and it's trusting God through these times that matters the most. On January 20th, me and my girlfriend Hannah decided to go skiing, since we had just gotten the biggest snowfall of the year. And there were several feet of snow at the resort. But at the time, that also meant that all of Denver and their extended family decided to go up too, which led us to waiting 3.5 hours before getting up to the top of the mountain, and not to mention another 45 minutes in the lift line. It was excruciating, but by the time we got to the top of the mountain, we were ready to shred some fresh powder, when the worst possible thing could have happened. 20 seconds into the first run, I fell and broke my collarbone. Our day was completely ruined. It was all for nothing. And at the time, so was my capstone. They slid me down the mountain, and I got my x-rays, and it was a clean break. I wouldn't be able to work out until summer, and that's when I learned I'd need surgery and soon after physical therapy. I thought maybe all hope for my capstone wasn't lost yet, because I could implement the physical therapy and the recovery process as a part of my capstone. And then all hope was lost. After the surgery, they put in eight screws and a large metal plate into my collarbone, and I learned that I wouldn't be needing any physical therapy, and my recovery process would simply be sitting at home doing absolutely nothing for 4 months. My capstone was doomed. I was lost, and I had no direction. But I remembered something that my discipleship group leader and coach for our football team, Paul Lowe, had said. In an interview last semester, oh, here's the pictures, by the way. This is what he said. He said, "All we can do is prepare for what we have control over and let God take care of the rest." Whether we win or lose, we know that that's a part of God's plan. I remembered I needed to trust God's plan, take a step back and let him do his work. I began praying for my recovery, my capstone, and my future in fitness, because I was scared. I was scared of what would happen if the recovery process didn't go well, they messed up the surgery by accident, and honestly, I was scared that I might get demotivated and lose my passion for fitness because I wouldn't be able to do it for so long. But fortunately, God eased my nerves and changed the way I thought. A great passage that I found is James 1:12. Blessed is the man who remains steadfast under trial. For when he has stood the test, he will receive the crown of life, which God has promised to those who love him. My mindset flipped upon reading this, and I started thinking of ways that I could still go along with my capstone without being able to do any physical training. That's when I started researching nutrition. I knew I'd have to improvise, and I just didn't know how. I didn't know how I could continue a project all about fitness without being able to do any of the fitness. And that's how I found nutrition, which would become one of my favorite things to learn about, implement, and teach others about too. Through the hours and hours of traffic, the broken collarbone, and the derailing of my capstone, I was able to find something that I now love, and it's completely paid off. I now have a new appreciation of my health, and I now value being able to work out so much more. One of my favorite inspirational quotes by famous athlete Vince Lombardi says, "It's not whether you get knocked down, it's whether you get back up." It's such a simple yet moving quote that helped me get through this. This experience, even though it was a pretty big setback, has taught me so much, and whether I saw it at the time or not, I grew in it in so many ways. It taught me that God has a plan. As long as I stay strong and get back up, he'll guide me, and everything will work out in the end. Regardless of the turbulence I've had to undergo this year, I circled around to a topic that I now love and understand as a crucial role in health and wellness, and it's become now a staple in my daily life and has shaped me in ways that I never thought it would have. Researching nutrition and dieting for the last 2 months has been way more fun and engaging than honestly any school project that I've ever had. I started by doing this research project on dieting, where I learned what a diet is, why we do them, and how to create one and create them for ourselves. Before this capstone, when somebody told me they were on a diet, the first thing that I thought of was that they were just going to lose weight. But after this project, I've learned that people do diets for so many different reasons, and they all have so many different purposes. Some of them including preventing cancer, gaining weight, religion, better complexions, heart health, and better digestion. Each one of them has a wide assortment of different foods that they can and can't eat, and it taught me so much about each of them. I also researched supplements like whey, creatine, and ashwagandha, and how to use them responsibly and safely. But most notably, I learned how to accurately find body mass index, basal metabolic rates, and macronutrients for any given individual. And I'm sure you'd all love it if I bored you with the monotonous definition of each of those, but I won't. I'll give it to you in brief. They're each statistics that help me to find out, based on someone's age, height, weight, and gender, how much they eat and what they eat based on their goals. I realized just how much diet affects your body, especially in the gym. It's said that 80% of your fitness results are made up from diet and what you eat, which prompted me to immediately go and try a diet for myself. That's when I started doing a no-sugar diet while also trying to bulk up, which I knew would be really hard. But at the same time I was doing my own diet, two of my friends, Mike Poirier and Kyle Lewis, approached me asking me to help them go on a diet. And of course I agreed, because I thought it would be a great experience for my capstone, and it was. I began researching and making a diet for both of them individually, and that weekend we went to lunch and I gave them everything they'd need to start. They were both looking to lose weight and set themselves a goal of losing around 10 pounds. They started that Monday, and since then they have been eating very healthy, high-protein, low-calorie diets while working out 6 days a week. This was the best, most fun project I've ever gotten to do for anyone, and they've both managed to safely lose 10 pounds or more and reach their goals. Can we get a round of applause for them? And during this, we all grew way closer, and it made me a lot happier to be able to share something that I loved and something that I had spent so much time. I never thought this would come from a broken collarbone, and God had answered my prayers and blessed me in so many ways. Whether I saw it at the time or not, He was growing me as a person. It reminded me of a Bible verse I know, which is 1 Peter 4:10. As each has received a gift, use it to serve one another as good stewards of God's very grace. I've received a love from fitness from God, and until now, I haven't embraced the opportunity to share it with others, but now that I have, I plan to do it much more intentionally and more often in the future too. I really only have God to thank for the discipline, perseverance, and community I've been able to find throughout this year. Being so underweight and out of shape for most of my life, I realize that I'm so blessed to have learned so many valuable lessons throughout my fitness journey, and especially this year with Capstone. It has all been so formative in my life and brought me so much closer to God. Without Him, none of this would have been possible. As I go on to college, I plan to continue to pursue nutrition and get back in the gym as my injury heals. I can't wait to hit the ground running again with my newfound knowledge and passion for nutrition to help me along the way. Even though fitness is so crucial, it's really in Christ that we find fulfillment in our lives, which obviously begs the question, why do we need nutrition? Well, if there's one thing that I've learned throughout my Capstone and my fitness journey, it's that by staying active, eating good, and working out, we're worshiping God. Our body is our temple. And by doing all of those things, we're appreciating the gift from God that it is. And it doesn't have to be a chore either. Find what you love and do it. As Rachel Porter had once said. You guys can do anything, from swimming, biking, hiking, any of it. It doesn't have to be weightlifting or running, as fitness is traditionally perceived. Thank you for coming to my class.